many as I need. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avagnoni.
With special guest today, Yasmin Wall, bringing you this week's Ascended World. So today we decided we're just talking about weather.
That's right. That's right. It's irritating enough in itself.
I know. And it's funny, we get into these conversations and the shadow stuff just gets deeper and deeper. And it's like, oh, do I really want to talk about it? Do we really want to talk about it? It's so important though, honestly.
Well, and it's so much not what you think it is. And that's what makes it so imperative to keep talking about it.
Right.
Because we keep putting it in a box and saying, okay, we know what the shadow is. We're going to set it over here. And one weekend we'll do that.
One weekend, one Sunday afternoon, when I'm bored and have nothing else to do.
Right. One day when I'm feeling really good, I'm going to crack that box open and just bang right through that. And it's just not that. It's not that at all.
No, what we started talking about last week had to do with your perception that I thought was great. That by projecting a physicality into these dimensions, creating, these separate identities and the physical body itself, that in itself is the shadow that we create, right? So sit with that for a minute. Or squirm with it a minute. Yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, what if we are the shadow personified? Because if you really think about it, wholeness is, the good.
Well, wholeness is just everything, right? So
right. Well, but if you think, if you're looking at it from a perspective of good, bad, right, wrong, and polarity, we talk about, the goal is wholeness. The goal is to get back to wholeness. And
right.
And so that has to mean the opposite of that is this.
Well, because look at us, we're faceted. We're sitting here right now, three facets that are very complex and individual and shadowy, right? Because if it wasn't for the shadow, we wouldn't have the depth of the color, the just the saturation of our presence and stuff like that, right? So it was interesting.
And we wouldn't have all the interesting nuances that we've created and the differentiations and I mean, it's just so intricate and interconnected.
Yes. And it's not bad. It's just this, we put so much weight on the shadow being bad, right? We put so much weight on the shadow being something that can hurt us, that is, apart from us, that can have power over us. And it's like, except we are the shadow.
Or simply undesirable.
Right. So then we're afraid of ourselves, right? Or we are repulsed by ourselves by creating this.
Right.
And so,
I had an earth-shattering thought, I think prior to our conversation on Friday, and it's like, I have always strived to embrace my creativity. And it was like, when I was working, it was like, oh, if I wasn't working, then I'd have all this time and I would do this. Then I wasn't working, but I had kids. And then I had more kids. And then it was like, well, if I just didn't have that. And so there was always an excuse not to embrace that. And it was always, I have other things that are more important. I have other things that are more of a priority. I have reasons to not do that. And when it hit me that I was going through the motions of saying that I'm making these choices for doing the right thing, or the good thing, or the light, or the path I'm supposed to do. What if that's really the shadow? And I mean, it was just like, whoop, rug got pulled right out from under me from the perspective of, what if that's been the shadow? And look, I've lived for how many years embracing that. And I was just mortified.
How did I, and you know, when we had that conversation, I can't even remember what was I talked about that was related. I don't even remember. That was so many days ago.
No, it really was several days ago, but apparently it's still rocking my world.
Right.
But
Well,
it was that was when it really hit me that the shadow is so subjective.
Right.
It's your point of view. It has nothing to do with dark and light, right and wrong. It's all about what you judge and perceive. And that is so complicated because look at the way we're raised. Look at and all the layers that brings in. And I mean, it's just so
Well,
freaking complicated.
think of this is making me yawn. Think of the paradox of, okay, we're projecting a shadow, which then creates our physicality, right? We create the shadow, which creates our physicality, not the other way around, which we always talk about, that we cast a shadow.
Right.
But what if the idea of us casting a shadow is just, no, it's showing us what we are, right?
And, yeah. It's crazy.
Pretty, it's like, right?
Right.
And then, you know, and then that shadow is creating more shadows through the judgment because that's the nature of the projection, right?
Right.
So then what if, you know, we're playing this game of, well, we strive for the light so much because we have that self-loathing of judgment, knowing that we as individuals are the shadows, and
Or
that
representations of, yeah.
which is why then we believe we have to attain enlightenment, and then we have to attain, you know, being the light, or attain being whatever,
But
you know,
that's from the
ascended.
original creation. Like it feels like that
Yeah.
self-loathing.
Well, but that we created that to have all of these
Right.
experiences, right?
Exactly.
And when you talk about the separation, it's like there's so many facets of it that, you know, trickle into each perception, you know.
Yep. I mean, it's the whole thing. Just if you really think about it and think about the ramifications and it's just earth shattering, mind blowing.
Well, it changes everything, right?
Shifting.
Well, and it makes everything it makes everything even more opposite than what we thought it was, right?
Right. Exactly.
And it's like, well, yeah, it's a
But very deep, there's a sense of peace to it, because then it's all relative.
well, we know that's all relative, right? It's
Right. But it gives it, I don't know, I feel it like at a different level in a sense.
Yeah.
Guess I'm not quite to that place of peace yet.
Well, not that I'm saying I am, but there's a sense of it. Because
Right.
it's very different.
Yeah, and what
It's almost, yeah, I can see that. It's almost like, oh, that's a relief just to get it out in the open.
right.
Just
Oh,
to
see,
expose it for what it really is.
Right.
It's like I don't have to pretend anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That feels good.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. And that's been a lot of what I've been doing. Like we're all like stopping the pretending. It's just
Right.
so much easier. And when you do that, you're like, oh, look
I
at
know.
all of these things that are peeling away. Then I'm like, look at this. So this had like this iota of energy, and this had this iota of energy. Well, then when you have 300 things, well, that's a heavy load right there, right? So
Right.
when you start to just say, you know, it is what it is, right? And if I recognize that all the stuff I chose to experience here is through the filter of being the shadow, that's powerful, right?
Oh, right.
I mean, I feel that like right here when
I've been
say
touching
like,
I've been
right?
feeling it.
But the thing is, knowing that we don't even exist. Again, going back to we don't even exist because we're just a projection, right?
Right.
So then it sort of lightens that load a little bit, going, right, exactly. And so, you know, what many say about this, and I know there's a lot of concern about this, is, well, if you really truly embrace that whole shadow thing, and again, it's this judgment of what the shadow is, it's like, well, then what prevents you from then becoming a serial killer or, you know, sociopathic or, you know, whatever. What prevents you from doing that anyway? I'm just saying.
Exactly. And you know, it's that I come back to a comment from someone taking one of our courses and talking about judging a course of action. And one is, you know, hurrying someone's death along who has a terminal illness versus keeping them alive longer and assuming that keeping them alive longer is the right thing to do versus hurrying their death is the wrong thing. And I said, but what if the shadow is, you stay alive and suffer?
Right. Well, because then you continue to be the shadow, right? And as soon as you step out, you're free of that, right?
But we automatically assume, oh, well, keeping someone alive, that trumps it all. That's the ultimate, you know, but it's all just perspective. It's so subjective to what the shadow is. And when you say we are the shadow, it's whatever we do.
Whether we judge it as good or bad. Right. And again, so, all right, let's think about opposite world stuff, right? So you're talking about that, about the death, right? So what about when we believe we're supposed to be in service to helping other people? But in helping other people, we're preventing them from completing their own journey, right? And from learning what they came here to do. Or like, and it's like, oh, well, guess what? So all of these things that we guise under, it's good, it's, you know, it's exalted, it's, you know, the martyrdom and all that kind of stuff is truly perpetuating that recreation and the depth of the creation of the shadow in the experience that we had. And that's not bad either, but it's just looking at it from a different place. And you know, I always tell people, well, don't go by what you think you're supposed to do, because when you think, that's your ego. When the word supposed to comes to, that's your ego,
right?
Like your living thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just ask, is this, you know, what is it for me to do or be here, right? Not what am I supposed to do, or am I supposed to do this, or even what we get caught up in spiritual terminology, is it highest and best for me to do that? Because that in itself is a judgment and a hierarchy, which then comes from the ego.
Right.
Because it implies that there's something that's good and something that's bad. There's a right choice and a wrong choice, which is still based in duality and separation, which means it's based in the ego. So you see how this all ties around. So ultimately, we simply just need to get to this place to recognize, you know, and it's funny because I hear this collective voice now that's really grumbling of us talking about this, because it's like calling us out on our own shit. Excuse my friend.
That not that many have shown up to listen to this.
I know, which is so funny because usually we have a good group of people, right? Of course it is Tuesday, but oh yeah, I feel that grumbling, because it was just like, yeah, don't no, you can stop now, like, you know, really.
Yeah, it goes so many layers, from the person.
And the more we get to know ourselves, the easier it is to cut through all of that rabble and collective dissidence, and just say, no, this is for me.
Right. And then people are going to say, well, so then what is expanded, guidance from expanded consciousness then? So it's just more playing in the ego. It's more playing in the shadow, not in the ego. In the shadow, which is what the ego is all about anyway,
Right. And it's the shadow disguised as your best friend.
Right.
I'm
Right.
here to protect you. I'm here to keep you safe.
Right. Yeah.
That's uncomfortable.
That feels really nice and warm and fuzzy, doesn't it?
Accepting the fact. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, the challenge is for us to reframe everything that we see and experience from that understanding, because I feel like it's from that, because then the ego or the mind says, well, then how do I even do this? Like then what is what we're doing? Like what is the, what is the commitment to consciousness about then, right? And to me, it is the reconnection of the shadow into the whole, right? So it's stepping out of separation, like we say when we do the clearings, is like stepping out of separation back into wholeness to create from that vibration, right? And recognizing that we're both, that we're the shadow and the light, that we are the wholeness, we're the divine, that we are the evil, dark things in the cracks and crevices, and we're everything in between that. But that's a challenge for many to like, because everybody's like happy to say I'm the light. But if I say, well, you're just your pure existence here is shadow, right? Well, what do you mean? And then think about
you don't know me very well then.
Right. Oh, and then you can understand people's non-logical drive to please others, right? To make others believe that they're good, to make them believe that they are, worthy and lovable and stuff, because there's that core underlying self-judgment, self-loathing about being the shadow embodied and forgetting it at the same time.
Right. Crazy. Just crazy.
Okay, now let's talk about the weather, because I think that was enough.
I know, that's enough. Woo, can't take any more.
But I think like leading into what is so important about this though is forgiveness, right? So like, right, forgiving ourselves, apologizing, and of course going back to our circle of forgiveness, which shameless plug for our program. In August we start the forgiveness course, which even if you've done it, this one's worth doing it again, because we're redoing all of it, the whole thing. So
that was just the pilot.
That was just the warm up. Yeah. So the circle of forgiveness, apology, forgiveness, acceptance, embracing, love, and gratitude for the whole thing, for the whole experience, for the whole creation. Apologize to ourselves for doing this and denying ourselves that realization, right? Forgiving ourselves for being that and creating such an energy of burden around it, right? And accepting.
I forget where I read that literally happiness is coming to a place of non-judgment of anything about yourself.
Right.
And that's what the process of forgiveness all the way through to gratitude gives you.
Yep.
And it just makes complete and utter sense.
It's not enough to just apologize and forgive. It's really, really key to come around that full circle to gratitude. Yeah.
Right.
Because we created this phenomenal experience. So
why not all the way through?
And there's no place else in the multiverse, as I understand it, that we've created this depth in this way to create such separation and externalized reflection of our divine selves, right?
Right.
In really unique ways. So it's not just acceptance, but gratitude for look at what an awesome job we've done.
I know. Look at the intricacies and the interconnectivity and the phenomenal experience. It's incredible.
Yeah. And so when we start to reframe that, and then we look at triggers, right? Then it becomes natural to say, of course, that's something that I'm creating. right? And that reality that's reflecting back to me is I am the negative, quote unquote, right? The shadow looking in on itself, right?
Right.
So talk about self-responsibility to the core.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no dodging that.
No. So then it's like, well, look at how complex and beautiful I made it. Like, look at the symphony that goes around it and its perfect interlacing, creation. And that going through it, and this is seeing through the matrix. This is seeing that the matrix is the shadow, right?
Right. Right.
Which is what we are, and like we're the creations. And we've talked about that, it's going back to that. We are the matrix. We are in the matrix and we are creations of the matrix, and our individual personas don't even exist. We're playing in a video game. There is a movie that is coming out. I just saw it. Oh, I think it's coming out, or it came out already, with Ryan Reynolds, where he is some guy and going through life and whatever. And at some point, somebody tells him he's in a video game.
Oh, really? I don't think I've seen that. Don't think I've seen that advertised.
I saw that somewhere recently and I was like, oh, that's very interesting, especially with all these, concepts around the matrix and false reality and or the idea of reality being false anyway.
Yes.
So the challenge, I guess, is so first I think is for us to come into that place. I think that's probably what our clearing is today, is doing that whole apology forgiveness thing for that creation of ourselves as the shadows, and then forgetting that and projecting it and all that kind of stuff, and then now being able to see through it. But the next step beyond that is knowing how to navigate it in consciousness from that pure understanding.
Yep.
So, let's just go do that. I think I'm done talking about this, honestly. I know it's only been a half hour, but
No, I think it's been an intense half hour.
I think we went out of space and time, because it feels like we've been talking about this for like 2 hours.
Right. All right.
Because as soon as I said that, I feel like, oh, there I go floating. I can feel myself getting pulled out. There's the yawn, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so let's go do that. Let's do the apology, forgiveness, acceptance, embrace, love, gratitude for creating ourselves, creating the shadow by creating ourselves, and then all the reflections and projections around it, and the experiences, and completing all the desired experiences, and knowing it is such a beautiful, complex matrix that we've created to complete the project as we planned. And then the second part is to then know how to navigate that in a way that is expanded in consciousness, that incorporates all parts, right? The whole and the shadow, and the light, right? Because it's all part of the same thing. All right, let's go do that, because I just feel like I'm going to sleep in that right now.
Yeah, I know, I do too.
All right, so everybody close your eyes, take a deep breath. Open your heart as we step out of separation and back into wholeness, and set ourselves in the vibration where that is our truth. That is from where we exist and create and experience. Well, it started out very bumpy, but then it finally calmed down.
Yeah. Yeah. That was really enlightening.
Yeah, it was seeing how, one of the things that came up for me this weekend was my hidden agenda of control. And so, and then there was so much self-judgment when I uncovered it, right? Going, well, look at you being so conscious, and you still have this underlying need to do this and to have the control, and then this fear about letting go of it. And when I was out there looking at that, I was sort of looking at it and going, oh, well, really letting go of control is letting go of the shadow, it's like letting go of all of the constructs that we've created, because that's how we create them. And separation is through control, right?
Right, right.
And so it was like, oh, okay. So now I just need it, because then we're afraid that we won't exist anymore. And we say, oh yeah, I've let go of control, right? But I've let go of this level, or like the first 10 levels of control. But when you get down to the core, it's like, well, no, because we're still, it makes me think of the movie Lucy, where she started to like disappear, right? And it's like, and we think that takes something to attain, but it's actually when we let go of holding the density, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's like, oh,
Absolutely.
and now it's like, oh, so if I let go of all control, I am just going to fail to exist anymore.
Or simply recognize that I'm everything. And in that recognition, I can't discern me from not me.
Right. Right. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's one to sit with this week.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think really it's for us to recognize how to navigate from this different perspective, right? From this expanded perspective,
Right.
Because that's something we just haven't done.
No, or haven't acknowledged if we have done it.
Right.
Right.
So, yeah, that feels so much better, honestly. Although my stomach and Yashmin's stomach at different times were talking very loudly through that.
I could hear.
They were continuing the conversation back and forth.
I kind of had to laugh. I was like, that's letting go of control.
Right. Exactly. And I was like, yep, okay, go ahead. Speak your words.
Right.
That is what it is.
Yep. All right. So so this is a short one for us this week, but it feels like that was like 3 hours worth of material, honestly.
Well, it really was intense.
Yeah.
Very intense.
So everybody sit with that this week, and maybe start just tapping into that and say, okay, well, how do I do that? That's what we ask our guidance is, show me how to do that, in a constructive, productive, whole kind of way, right? And really for us to come back and do that kind of clearing over and over about that forgiveness and acceptance of what we are and what we are in our creation,
Right.
I think that might be a big missing piece. And come and do our forgiveness course as part of the Adventures in Wonderland program that starts on August 1st, coming up soon.
And it's on sale now.
Yes. $99 till the end of the month.
Right.
So, all right, everyone. Thank you, Yasmin, for joining us.
For having me.
I was glad to have a surprise visit, a bonus visit.
Yes.
Right.
All right, everyone. Have a great week. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Siega Avignoni and
Yasmin.
Yasmin.
Signing off with this week's Ascended World. Have a great one. Bye.